Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our world of darkness. And today we're doing a celebration of the fact that we just hit 1,300 subscribers. Now, I wouldn't normally do that at such an odd number, 13, except for the fact that it's 13. You know, I'm going to celebrate anything that's like 13, 666, something like that, any dark numbers. That's just going to be fun and silly and a chance for us to do something stupid. So today I've decided that we're going to cover some major events that happened in the 1300s in the world of darkness. Not just Vampire the Masquerade, mind you, but werewolf, mage, and other things of the like. We are going to look into the dark ages of the world of darkness and see exactly what kind of events happened in the century that we're going to be dealing with. And maybe this will become a thing. Maybe we'll do this again at 1400 or something like that. But I thought this would be a lot of fun. You guys let me know what you think about this little look into our fictional history. The very first thing that I want to mention is due to the strong anti-pagan reactions of the church and loss of wilderness territories, the Lyonin were known to have passed in this century. That is a very sad thing. That was a bloodline of the Gangrel that were just a lot of fun. They were practicing druids. They did not believe that they were a Gangrel bloodline, that they believed they had their own origin story completely separated from the Judeo-Christian stylings of the normal Canaanites of the area. But the Lyonin, it actually says, everything that I've been able to find says that they died off due to the hunting and the loss of wilderness. But there is something about them that I love, that I really want to talk about, that I think is really funny. And that's the fact that they had a very interesting bane. And one of their banes was the fact that whenever they embraced, their generation rose. And that's not really something that you can figure out on your own. If anything, they might just go, oh no, I'm feeling weaker, and then decide that they need more children to help keep them safe, so they just continue to embrace and embrace and embrace and embrace. But the way that it happens is, say you have an 8th generation Lyonin, and they're going to embrace. Their child would be 9th generation, correct? So the Lyonin that embraced, the sire also is now 9th generation. They actually gave part of their power to their childer, and that helped them to that helped to wean them out of supernatural society, because they basically were able to breed themselves out. So moving on from that, in 1300 AD, the Mistress Covenant, which is a part of the Order of Hermes, was destroyed by Artificer Magi. The Ascension War goes into full gear. The Ascension War. Oh my god, where do we even start? The Ascension War in Mage the Ascension is a battle over the very nature of reality, and is the driving conflict of the metaplot in Mage the Ascension. By advancing their metaphysical cause, each faction of the war seeks to control the consensus and makes their reality dominant, locking out the ability of rival factions to alter it without incurring heavy paradox. So if you guys are at least a little bit aware of what's going on in Mage the Ascension, I always had a hard time getting into it. Mage the Ascension, the books always just read like stereo instructions to me, and I hope when we get Mage 5 it'll be a little bit easier for someone like me to grasp. But I do understand at least the overall idea, and that is there's a bunch of different factions of mages who are all fighting for dominance to make the world what they want it to be. Paradox is what happens when the world just decides to rubber band snap back into place, which can cause mages a lot of harm and even kill them on occasion. So this is when that stuff starts to really catch up, when the factions of the mages start warring against themselves. In 1320 AD, the Camarilla forms due to extremely strict enforcement of the traditions. The Inquisition comes to believe that the crusade against the Kindred has been successful. The war against the Anarchs and the Assemites continues, while the Inquisition returns to chasing more conventional heretics. So, what this actually is talking about is kind of interesting, because it says that in 1320, the Camarilla is formed. I would like to point out that it is not officially announced that the Camarilla exists until 1435, where it is just a small group of elder kindred who are trying to convince the rest of kindred society to shut the hell up and sit down, because the church is going to kill them. This is a pretty interesting look in the fact that it did start that early. This is Hardestat and Raphael de Corazon and all of the other founders who are just trying to get people to be quiet and to stop using each other as weapons out loud in force in public, because it's making the church realize that they can take them out. The church at that point starts to go after more conventional heretics. So in other words, people the church just doesn't like, people who have more money than the church, things like that. Any way they can seize power. In 1325 AD, the Cabal of Pure Thought holds a meeting in the White Tower and founds the Order of Reason, later to be known as the Technocracy. So in 1325, we have the birth of what we know as the Technocracy. The Technocracy is basically an organization that tries to put down what magic actually is in Mage the Ascension. Now, for a little bit more information on that, basically, the Order of Reason is founded in 1325 and was dedicated to the protection of humanity from the depredations of the supernatural, specifically mages, and even more specifically, the Order of Hermes. Now, over time, in the modern nights especially, we can go ahead and call them for what they are. The Technocratic Union, also known as the Technocracy. They're also called the Hidden Ones, or the Five Metal Dragons. They're initially portrayed as a typical black-hatted, mustache antagonist. They're the Men in Black against the mages. But they kind of grew into a distinct type of mage themselves in their own right, with introduction of the Guide to the Technocracy sourcebook. These guys are effectively, if you know what a Dantean is, they're anti-fairies in Changeling. These guys are anti-mages. They're still mages, but they're trying to keep the world as mundane as possible. In 1331 AD, the Aztecs begin building their empire, and Shaitan orders the deaths of any and all shapeshifters in Mexico. He's been working on the Aztecs since 1116 and isn't about to let anyone or anything interfere. That's actually an interesting plot line that I never really considered. The idea that the Shaitan had seized control of the Aztec Empire by claiming to be one of their gods. And by the way, if you don't know, if you're new to Vampire the Masquerade or World of Darkness in general and you don't know who the Shaitan is, he's one of the founding members of the Bali clan. Basically, devil vampires. They're the boogeyman that a lot of storytellers just refuse to say even exist, and that they're actually just there as a story to tell young kindred to keep them in line. But in Old World of Darkness plotline, the Shaitan actually took over the Aztec Empire by claiming to be one of their gods. Please, by all means, check out my Drowned Legacy video to learn a little bit more about him. But the idea of playing a Dark Age game in South America, where you're playing hunters controlled by an ancient vampire who you think is your god, and you're hunting shapeshifters. That's just a cool game altogether. It's going to be massively violent, but it's Hunter. That's kind of what it's for. In 1347 AD, the Black Death comes from China. Within a few years, it has claimed 1/3 of the population of Europe, and even reportedly quite a few vampires and Garou. The social repercussions are monstrous. While this is not the last outbreak of the plague, it is the last to approach this magnitude. It spreads so swiftly throughout Europe and kills so many that it provokes the second great maelstrom. Between this and the dawning age of reason, the dreams of humanity are shaken, and hence the shattering almost destroys the fairies. So we have a lot to unwrap in this one. First off, I want to point out that the Black Death, the bubonic plague spreading through Europe, is actually blamed on ratkin plague lords most of the time. So were-rats deciding to create this plague so that they can thin out the herd of humanity, because that's what the ratkin's job is from Gaia. The idea that they are there to go, oh, humans are getting too strong, let's go ahead and thin the herd a little bit. Let's go ahead and bring them down so that they have to rebuild back up, and just keeping up with that cycle. This, as it says, provokes the age of reason. Humans are becoming scared of the supernatural. They're trying to find more scientific reasons on why things are going like this. This is a whole mix-in with the whole order of reason and the way things go. And the fact that the shattering happens. So the shattering, just to let everybody know, is the third of the 5 eras of changeling existence. The other ones being the Mythic Age, which is where Fae just ran amok and did whatever the hell they wanted to on Earth. The Sundering, which is when things started to calm down and you start hearing legends about changelings. The idea of Fae coming in and stealing babies and replacing them with their own fairies so they can feed off the dreams of the young, things like that. But then we have the Shattering, where all the ideas of the past are just being lifted and destroyed from the fairies. The interregnum, I believe it's actually called, is when the Fae decide that they're going to flee this world and go back to Arcadia because there's not enough belief to keep them going. And then the resurgence. And the resurgence happened in the 1960s when we landed on the moon and all of the humans went, oh my god, there's so much out there to think about. I'd also like to point out, on the exact same day that the landing on the moon happened, Doctor Who came out. So there's lots of things to get people's imaginations bubbling over that one. So those are the main 5 eras of Fae existence. Also, and I can't ignore the fact that this said that it also started the second great maelstrom. Now that's touching on Wraith the Oblivion. The maelstroms are basically storms of death on the other side that cause havoc. These things are created by mass death at one time. So the Holocaust, the Black Plague, World Wars, things like that cause those type of massive soul storms to just rip through the Shadowlands and destroy everything in their path. And that is it. I mean, obviously there is a lot more stuff that happened, but those are the major world-shaking events that happened in the world of darkness in the 1300s. That was a lot of fun, and there's a lot more information. I do want to give credit where credit's due and thank the admins and creators of the World of Darkness timeline for first and second editions. Found on rescuemag.wordpress.com. That's where I got the majority of this information from. It was a lot of fun. Dark Age is such an interesting time period to play in because you can always do that. Oh, there's like an evil magistrate that lives in this town and everybody in the city knows that he is a vampire, or that there's a werewolf that's stalking the area and the humans know about it. It's so much fun to play in these supernatural dark settings and not have to worry about the masquerade from time to time. So again, if anybody enjoyed this kind of thing, if you'd like to see this again, then let's get to 1400 and we'll do the 1400s. And yeah, so get to it, spread it like the plague.